Matthew 24:14. And this gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. That's saying the gospel's got to be proclaimed to the entire world. Everybody in the world has to hear the gospel. Okay, then the end comes. Awesome. Question is, how are we doing that? I mean, yeah, Great Commission, go make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Yeah, that's the Great Commission. That's what we're supposed to be doing. But I don't know about you, but I don't see the whole sense of urgency in most people today. The sense of urgency that, oh, we got to preach the gospel so Christ can return and the end can come. I think if it were up to us, there'd be more of an urgency. But since it's not in our timing, it's in God's timing, which we'll talk about in a second, then it's not up to us to get the gospel out to the entire world, but God's going to do it in some way. And here's the way. Revelation chapter 14, verse 6 through 7. Then I saw another angel flying directly overhead with an eternal gospel to proclaim to those who dwell on the earth, to every nation and tribe and language and people. And he said with a loud voice, "Fear God and give him glory, because the hour of his judgment has come. And worship him who made heaven and earth, the sea and the springs of water." So God accomplishes getting the gospel proclaimed to everyone, and it was, what was it, language, tribe, people, nation, everyone. God accomplishes that through an angelic messenger flying throughout the entire earth, proclaiming that gospel. It's amazing, So we may not feel the sense of urgency, although we should. Granted, we should, because we were commanded by Christ. God himself commanded us to make disciples. And in order to make disciples, you have to preach the gospel, because people need to hear the gospel and accept Christ before they can become a disciple. So, yeah, we need to get out there and we need to preach the gospel. We need to make disciples. We need to baptize people in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And we need to be reliant on God's timing, because our timing is not exactly the same as God's timing. We don't force God to do things. God does things on his terms and on his timing. So, and only God knows when the end is going to come. So God knows when the gospel is going to be proclaimed to everyone. When everybody hears the gospel, God knows when that is. Why does he know? Because he's the one that makes it happen. I know I reiterate that, but that's because I really want you to grasp that. Does that give you license to not go out and proclaim the gospel? No. Because you were commanded by Christ, by God himself, to go and make disciples of all the nations. So here's a question. What are you doing to make disciples? And are you working in tandem with God to get the gospel to all the nations? Every language? We all have platforms that we can use. I've heard it said by one of my mentors before that we're missionaries in disguise. I'm a missionary in disguise as a security guard, as a maintenance worker, as a videographer. You might be a missionary in disguise as a police officer, or as a firefighter, or as a teacher. We all have a platform in which we can proclaim the gospel of Christ, death, burial, and resurrection. We all have a platform. We all have a story. So let's fulfill the Great Commission, get out there and make disciples and baptize people, and then let's let God do the work that we were unable to finish. that we were unable to do. Because God works in some weird ways, obviously. But God knows what he's doing.
I am a walking revival.